All right, guys. So this is just something simple to test. We're doing a parasitic draw. And basically what that is something could be staying on your vehicle for extended periods of time. For example, your interior lights that can stay on and kill the battery. That's easy to find out if that's a scenario, but that's a parasitic draw. It's drawing amperage with the key off. Some vehicles, when you're doing this kind of testing, the modules will stay awake for anywhere from 3 minutes all the way up to an hour, depending on your vehicle and application. This is a Hyundai. It's a little bit older model. These modules on this are basically put to sleep within about 3 to 5 minutes. So what we got is a special tool that hooks up from the negative terminal in between the battery and the primary cable. And what it does is this screw right here completes the circuit between your two ends. So you have to complete a circuit in the electrical system. And what this tool does is when you disconnect or loosen this up, it sends the power from this terminal here through the multimeter back into the other side of this terminal and feeds back into the system. So with this disconnected here, when you unscrew it, it disconnects the system, and now you're able to see how many amps or how much current is being used, and that will determine if there's modules or anything staying on that shouldn't be staying on. And in order to test that, obviously you take the key out, let it hook everything up, and let it sit. And the best thing to do is go ahead and, when you're letting it sit, disconnect the terminal with it in line, so that way you're reading the amperage through the system. Now, with it sitting, eventually, slowly, over time, this will start to decrease. And that is what you want. You want this to decrease in numbers. Ideally, you want to be less than 0.25 amps. That is, in some manufacturers, that is within spec. This is where you ideally want it, 0.02. That means nothing is staying on, and it's only pulling 0.02 amps, which is very little. And in order to test this properly, if you have higher amperage readings above 0.25, you slowly start pulling fuses. Some have multiple fuse locations depending on your application. When you open the door, the modules will wake back up and give you false readings. So go ahead and open the doors, let all the modules rest with it completing the circuit, because you don't want to keep messing with this, otherwise you're going to have to constantly keep restarting. So slowly remove fuses one at a time. Ideally take a picture, that way you know exactly where the fuses came out of, and you can put them back together. Some of the newer vehicles require multiple testings because multiple fuses refuse multiple modules. For example, this 30 amp fuse for a GM could feed the BCM, and the fuse right next to it could also feed the BCM. So you got to figure out which one is the one that's creating the problem. So it could take a couple of tries to figure it out. That's where wiring diagrams come in handy. So for this test purpose, this is how this is done, going through the special tool. Right now it's closed, so my amp meter is not reading any amperage because it's going straight through this instead of the multimeter. You loosen this up and the current flows through the multimeter and back into the vehicle. So that's the short, simple version of how to test for a parasitic draw. Alright, so this is the special tool. This does side post as well as top post. Basically what it's doing is measuring the amperage from the digital multimeter, which will tell me what module is staying on pulling amperage or current. So this particular tool here has a plastic wedge here, so when this is loosened it disconnects, which forces all of the current to come from this side through the multimeter to the other side to complete the circuit to the ground. So we got the fuse block here, and then there is a second one right in here, which you can see there. So what I've also done is these vice grips right here to close the switch for the lights. This also will basically allow the modules to turn off. So this is how it's done. Okay, so we're gonna power on the multimeter. Right now it is showing 0, 0. So what we're gonna do is, I've got the keys here, so they're not in the ignition. Right now we're gonna open this here, which is changing the system. Let me hook up my multimeter, the other side. It's going to allow this to run through the multimeter to give me measure the current or amperage with it connected over here. So when we open this up, we can see right now it is pulling 0.02, which is actually right where it's supposed to be. The negative's backwards, it shows in the negative right there, but that doesn't really matter here. So we are on the negative side, and right now everything's doing its job. All the modules are turned off, basically because everything is working like it's supposed to. Right now everything is ideal. Normally if you have something that's killing the battery for any extended period of time, you're going to be between 5 amps all the way down to up to half an amp, 0.5. Even all the way down to 0.25 is acceptable. A little high. We'd like to see them a little bit lower, but ideally you want to be at 0.02, but no more than 0.2 amps. Otherwise this system's good, but what you would normally do is start pulling fuses one at a time. Best thing to do is take a picture of your fuse block. That way you know exactly where the fuses came from and all the relays. On some models they do give you a chart on there, but you take a picture because some are not used, and you pull one fuse at a time. Do not put it back on. Do not put the fuse back in until you are done. Sometimes it could take multiple sessions to look at and verify, just because like on the GMs you got multiple fuses feeding one module, but you could have a short to power in one particular side, so it may require multiple attempts to find out exactly what it is. But right now there is no control modules, body control module, PCM, on newer vehicles, driver door modules and things like that. So this one is actually right where it's supposed to be. Like I said, normally you would start pulling fuses until you got down to that reading, to roughly that reading there. And that's testing for a parasitic draw.